Hey, and welcome to the podcast. Today we're talking with Gabriel, aka Gabriel Levy, about the new show Peacemaker.
Do you really want to taste it?
Today we're going to be discussing the last two episodes that came out, one episode per week. They dropped the first three episodes together, and then episodes 4 and 5 came out 1 week after. Episode 4 came out 1 week after the first three dropped, and then episode 5 came out a week later, and they are going to stagger the remaining three episodes out over the next 3 weeks as well. So Gabriel and I talked about the first three episodes in the previous podcast, and now we're going to talk about episodes 4 and 5. Are you there with us?
Yes, sir.
So,
episodes 4 and 5, releasing new episodes every Thursday.
Would you like to give us a synopsis of episode 4?
Sure. This is going to be from Wikipedia. Episode title, The Chode Less Travel. The group take Judo Master back to their headquarters, where Smith claims that he killed the butterfly. Chase drives Smith to Augie's house to retrieve new equipment, where Smith learns that Augie has been framed and arrested. Against Murn's wishes, and despite Adebayo trying to talk him down, Smith visits Augie in prison. Augie threatens to expose Project Butterfly to the police. Adebayo suggests to Chase that Smith would be better off without his father, and Chase gets himself arrested so he can kill Augie. Smith and Adebayo return to their headquarters, where an escaped Judo Master attacks Smith. Adebayo shoots Judo Master before he can reveal the secret about the butterflies. Smith returns to his trailer, where he is keeping the butterfly creature alive in a jar, and reflects on having to kill Rick Flag, as well as his traumatic childhood that included the death of his brother. In prison, Chase provokes Augie's prison mates into fighting, but fails to get Augie involved. He's later bailed out by Harcourt. Adebayo finds a lead on the butterflies and informs Murn, who is secretly a butterfly himself.
Okay, so major spoiler alert there. I guess I forgot to give the warning before that, but that just about sums up everything that happened in the episode. So that was episode 4, and right off the bat, this episode feels a bit different than the previous 3 episodes that came before it. Did you notice that as well?
Right, very, very different, and starting with episode 3 and continuing into, starting with episode 4 and continuing into episode 5, we've got different directors on board, with James Gunn coming back for future episodes, but it's going to be also staggered, different directors for different episodes. But James Gunn is still writing.
Right.
Still the writer.
So James Gunn directed the first 3 episodes of Peacemaker, and then for the 4th episode, it was directed by Jody Hill. So yeah, it just sort of has a different feel to it. Not in a good way. I think the first 3 episodes were pretty solid, and the 4th episode feels like it's floundering a bit. Not all that much goes on in the 4th episode that's exciting or interesting for the viewer. It doesn't seem to really advance the story all that much. Do you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. I forgot basically what happens in the episode almost immediately after I saw it, and part of that was just because I was spacing out because of the dialogue. Episode 4 seems to take what was already problematic in the first 3 episodes, which was mainly the dialogue. Just this pedantic, infantile, senseless kind of shouting, and extends that to the majority of the episode with little reprieve. And it's you really lose focus of what's going on, because it's not gripping. It's boring, and it feels very forced.
Right. So in the first 3 episodes, each episode sort of has its own story. In the first episode of Peacemaker gets out of jail and hooks up with the new team, and then he winds up killing a supervillain at the end of the first episode. Second episode, he's trying to evade the police, and then the third episode, they go on their first mission to take out was it a senator or congressman, someone who works for the government, him and his butterfly family. In the fourth episode, not a really lot happens. The key moments is Vigilante trying to infiltrate the prison to kill Peacemaker's dad, and Judo Master wakes up from his medical coma or whatever, and proceeds to have a fight with Peacemaker, and
Again, right?
Again, a second fight with Peacemaker, and Judo Master is then shot by Leota, in a very sort of anticlimactic fashion. So those are the main things that happen in the episode. Some of my problems with the episode were just sort of like the factual, like fallacy issues, sort of like cinema sins. And I guess let's start with the Judo Master one. Judo Master gets out of his restraint. So first of all, Judo Master isn't necessarily a bad guy. All we know about him is that he was a bodyguard for the Butterfly senator congressman family, but he's not a butterfly himself, so he's not necessarily a bad guy. And yet he's being restrained. He was almost beaten mostly to death by Economos in episode 3. So he manages to get out of his restraints and fights Peacemaker, and and then he's shot for some reason, even though I said he's not necessarily a bad guy. He just had an association with a butterfly, and he still doesn't die. So 2 cinema sins there. He's not necessarily a bad guy, yet they feel necessary to basically kill him. That's sin number 1. And sin number 2 is that he gets shot, Judo Master gets shot directly in the chest, and yet he doesn't die again. First time he's beaten in the head multiple times with a crowbar. Second time he's shot in the chest and doesn't die either of those times. Did any of these stand out to you when you were watching it as like, this is a little unbelievable?
It's a little bit strange that the Judo Master would stick around and fight these guys, especially since he's outnumbered. Like, he had a chance to escape and he didn't, and that kind of rings false in terms of what would actually play out. And also the shooting of Judo Master by Adebayo, who's a character who hasn't done much shooting at all, and the show writer makes a point to have that character talk about how she's never really shot anyone before, and here she just shoots the guy, and we get the impression that she's doing it to cover something up. But even so, it rings false, it rings odd.
Adebayo is the person I keep calling Leota, but she's referred to much more often as Adebayo in the show. Most of the characters are being called by their last names. So and then Vigilante, who we're now calling Adrian Chase, gets this hint from Adebayo that Peacemaker's dad is holding him back and, stunting, hurting his life. So he takes it upon himself to get himself incarcerated so he could single-handedly take out the what do they call him, the White Dragon?
Right.
And it just seems like a useless part of the episode, a useless part of the story. He picks up this heavy trash can in sort of like this court with park benches outside the prison, where there's like 20 cops having lunch or whatever. He picks up this big heavy garbage can that's right in the middle of all these tables with all these cops around, and he drags it up to the building and proceeds to try and lift it up and smash the window. And of course he gets arrested like 4 seconds later. And then he gets taken into jail, and single-handedly he tries to take down the White Dragon and like 4 of his like super tough white supremacist looking buddies. And I don't know, it just seems kind of stupid right from the outset that he thought that would be a good idea, even if he's not the brightest tool in the shed. With like very little prompting from someone he doesn't even know so well, he's going to go and try to kill Peacemaker's dad. And also the fact that the White Dragon is supposed to be this sort of scary villain they're building up, and like single-handedly this half inept superhero is able to infiltrate the jail and take out all the people around the White Dragon and almost the White Dragon himself. Just seems a little unbelievable.
Right. The vigilante character is kind of an unhinged character. He seems to be a combination of unusually capable. He's a trained sniper, clearly. He's a very competent martial artist, and I think that's actually one of the most fun parts of the episode is when he starts wailing on those guys in the prison. And even in that scene, which I thought was well handled, he hurts himself, which is kind of showing us that that kind of combination of discipline, but also lack of discipline and lack of restraint. We know he's got a previous injury, and which also begs the question: how can he actually move like this? But,
right. So it just winds up with him getting put in a room by himself and then getting released from prison by his team pulling some strings. So it doesn't advance the story in any way. So it's kind of like you don't really get anywhere from that sort of excursion with Chase breaking into the prison. Also another point that has sort of stood out to me, not only with this episode but also the following episode, is I think Vigilante's character is a much better character with his mask on. I don't think they ever should have unmasked the character. Like, maybe they should have used him more sparingly, but I think he's really a great character with the mask on. It gives me some serious Deadpool vibes. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily about that character in particular, but in terms of the whole show, clearly this is riding off of the popularity of the Deadpool franchise, the rated R superhero. Even though James Gunn has explicitly spoken about him wanting this show to not be exactly like Deadpool, he wants things to be different. But I definitely feel there's similarities, not just in that character, but in the show overall.
Right. And then this episode ends. You find out Clemson Mern. You find out that Mern is a butterfly, and we don't really know what all that means because we don't really know all that much about butterflies, good or bad. They're sort of keeping it a mystery. Would you want to give us a synopsis of episode 5 before we dive into that?
Sure. This is episode 5. The synopsis, again, is the Wikipedia synopsis written by whoever writes Wikipedia synopses. This episode is called Monkey Dory and is directed by Rosemary Rodriguez. This is going to be another director. At Augie's urging, Song and Fitzgibbon realize that Smith killed Sterfhausen after double-checking Augie's fingerprints and reinterrogating the couple that Smith held hostage. The team is briefed about how the butterflies enter human hosts and only feed on an unknown liquid. Adebayo's clue leads them to a nearby bottling factory where the liquid is processed and bottled, while Mern enlists an associate, Casper Locke, to pose as the new police captain and undermine Song's investigation. Song resorts to requesting help from her uncle, a judge. Smith uses a helmet with x-ray vision to learn that all the factory employees are butterflies, as well as an escaped gorilla named Charlie. They kill the employees, and Economos earns Smith respect by killing Charlie with a chainsaw. The team bond on the way back from the factory, and Smith invites Adebayo to drink at his home, where she advises him to be nicer to the others. She also secretly plants a diary in his home as ordered by Waller. Returning to the office, Adebayo discovers with Smith's X-ray helmet that Myrn is a butterfly, and he attacks her.
Right. So this episode, unlike the previous episode, has like this grand, big sort of, I guess it's a scenes of violence. I don't know, what would you call it, an action sequence. A large part of this episode is an action sequence, unlike the previous episode. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on it. Do you think this large action sequence worked? Do you think it made it a better episode than the previous episode? And would you have done it any different, this large action sequence that goes down at the plant that manufactures the butterfly food?
Well, I liked episode 5 better than episode 4. I noticed going back to episode 4 that the camera work was very different. It wasn't as artistic. A lot of shaky cam, a lot of very up close shots of people's faces. I didn't particularly enjoy the directing style of episode 4. More so episode 5. In terms of the action sequence, I did enjoy it. I think that's a big reason why people, myself included, are tuning into the show, is because we want to see a superhero show. We want to see action. In terms of how they carried it out, I thought it was very entertaining. I really liked the gorilla. It seems that gorillas are very popular. Listening to the Red Letter Media folk, they have part of an episode where they discuss how at some point they started putting gorillas on the front of comic book covers, and whenever they did that, they would really sell out. So there's something interesting about gorillas in general. And I was actually kind of disappointed when they killed the gorilla character. I thought it was really cool. I thought the CGI was well done, and it would have been really exciting to have a character like that remain in the show. So yeah, I didn't have any issues with how they carried out that action scene. I kind of feel like a lot of things in this show, that things are kind of shoehorned in, that they don't necessarily feel earned or deserved, and perhaps that's one issue.
Right. Yeah. So this episode has this long action scene and very violent. And to me, I don't know, it didn't quite work for me so much. Like parts of it were exciting, but it just seemed to go on overly long, and there didn't seem to be much happening outside of that before or after the action sequence. There's this point where who is it? I guess it's is it Adebayo? No, it's Harcourt, and I don't know who's ever she's with. Maybe it's Chase. They're stuck in the factory. All the butterfly guys, who are essentially like zombies, are chasing after them, and they're able to lock themselves in this closet with this metal door, and the butterflies are banging on the door, and slowly they're bashing it in. And then Peacemaker's with Adebayo. They come to the rescue, and there's I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 of the butterflies by the door, and he proceeds to throw, was it a Russian tank missile or tank mortar with a grenade attached to it into the pile of butterflies. And it was quite humorous, that little scene right before he throws it, where Adebayo is like, "What's that?" And I actually remember that part from the trailer for Peacemaker before the show even came out. But from a cinema sin level, it would seem like that's a really good way to kill who's ever inside the room. That's right in front of where they're throwing the grenade. That's like the optimal way to kill their two teammates.
Right. And, I was also wondering, like, even though that was a very powerful bomb, was it powerful enough to just blow the door open as perfectly as it did? Because we later, right after that, we see them walk through the door to help their friends out and eventually kill the rampaging gorilla.
Right. So there's a rampaging gorilla. Yeah. Go ahead. What are you doing?
Yes, the door is just is perfectly opened, as opposed to the whole wall being blown down or the door just not having budged at all. The logic seems to follow the writing and not so much logic.
Right. They're just fighting this big gorilla just because the big gorilla started attacking them. So they're all fighting the big gorilla, and they seem to be losing. They're all every one of them in turn seems to be thrown into a bookcase or crate of something, and they're just about to lose the battle with the giant gorilla when, major spoiler alert, but I think we already said this in the synopsis, Economos comes to the rescue by killing the gorilla with a chainsaw. And were you expecting that? To me, it was. I mean, you go 2 episodes back, you have Economos coming to the rescue by taking out Judo Master, and now he's taking out the next bad guy. I feel like they already used that trope once.
I don't know if I was expecting it, but I also didn't feel particularly surprised. Then right after that scene, I think it's right after that scene, is an argument or a yelling match or whatever you'd call it between Economos and Vigilante, and Vigilante wanted to use the chainsaw, and he was vetoed, and he's all upset. Why didn't I get to do that? There's a kind of unnaturally flippant attitude and just constant arguing that just doesn't seem natural. There's a lot of super unnatural elements in this show, and the show seems to be written around moments. It's like they think, what would be good, what would be an exciting scene for this show, write that, and then kind of write everything else around it. So there's a kind of disjointed feeling to what's going on. People aren't really behaving like people.
Right. And then at the end of the episode, you find out that Myrn, well, Adebayo, we already know that Myrn's a butterfly, but Adebayo finds out that Myrn is a butterfly, and Myrn goes after her, and that's the end of the episode. We don't know what happens to Adebayo at the end there. So just another point is that we don't know a lot about the butterflies. It seems like the team that they've organized was made to take out the butterflies, but it seems like the butterflies have infiltrated the government, so it's not exactly sure who's running this team, and it seems like if that is the case, then the government is sort of fighting against itself. So we're not really sure if the team that Peacemaker is on are in the right. Everything that just seems so shady regarding the butterflies. It's like we don't have enough information to judge whether these guys are even doing the right thing. And we also, there's the scene where Peacemaker has taken home one of the butterflies instead of killing it like he said he did, and he's been feeding it. So that's another little part of the plot that we're going to see how that plays out.
Right. We still don't know who's a good guy and who's a bad guy. Of course, this team is being run by Amanda Waller, who we do know that she is a suspicious character in terms of whether she's actually a good person or not, and whether she's doing the right thing or not, as evidenced by the film. She seems to be at least partially evil. So all of this is questionable. We don't know who the good guys are. We don't know who the bad guys are. And that would seem to be something that James Gunn wanted intentionally. He wanted there to be this vagueness about these characters to kind of give all of them I guess, in the eyes of the audience, the opportunity to be heroes.
Right. So, just to wrap things up over here, how do you think episodes 4 and 5 compared to episodes 1 through 3? And do you think the show, in my opinion, I think episodes 4 and 5 sort of lost some of the momentum and the energy and enjoyment of the first 3 episodes. But I want your opinion on that, and I also want to ask you if you think the show is going to be able to redeem itself, if you think the same as me in the last 3 episodes that have yet to come out.
I'd say it's a first season. Some shows have fantastic first seasons and are able to carry it throughout, like Breaking Bad, for example. Although that might be one of the few examples, but we've known, for example, for like Star Trek: The Next Generation, things can get so much better after the first season, even after the second season, that it's almost an unrecognizable show looking backwards. We're going to have James Gunn returning to direct episode 6 and episode 8, and I imagine he's going to keep coming back. And when he does, I'm guessing it's going to pull the show back together. And as the other directors and as James Gunn gets a feeling for what works and what doesn't, it should. I think it's going to be a more cohesive show moving forward. It's hard to know definitively, but it's got all the elements of a good show built into it, and I think it definitely has the potential to succeed. As it stands right now, it seems to be the number one show maybe in the world. It seems to be the top show. So yeah, it definitely has that potential, and I'm still interested in where they're going to take it. I'd say my favorite parts of episodes 4 and 5, strangely enough, were the ending of episode 4 and the beginning of episode 5, where Peacemaker's just kind of chilling in his home, just kind of being reflective and peaceful, and smoking his bong and blowing the smoke into the butterfly jar, and that kind of that tone continues from the end of episode 4 into the beginning of episode 5. It's almost a continuation of the same scene. We just kind of get to see Peacemaker in his element, just kind of chilling at home and talking to Eagly. And there's something about that those character moments which feel genuine and authentic and are a breath of fresh air from all the kind of forced bantering that takes up much of these episodes.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's just more organic, and it's kind of building Peacemaker's character. It's some real character development that's much needed in Peacemaker and in most TV shows and movies. So just to go back on the last point just a little bit, do you agree with my assessment, or do you feel differently that episodes 1 through 3 were stronger than episodes 4 and 5?
Yeah, without a doubt. I binge watched the first 3 episodes. Like I even though there were pieces to it. I think the worst parts about 4 and 5, those elements I noticed in the first 3 episodes, but they were much better balanced. So I definitely like the first 3 episodes better than episodes 4 and 5.
Well, cool. Thanks a lot for joining me, and I look forward to discussing the next couple of episodes with you as they come out.
Sure. Looking forward. Sounds good.
All right. Have a good night.
Good night.